Good
morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So we're excited to talk to you about engaging employers, the who, why, what, and how. And we do have some time at the end of the presentation for questions. So if you have questions along the way, just go ahead and put those in the chat, and Astrid will keep track of those for us. So let's get started.
Who is at the table? So today we are going to introduce ourselves, as well as we have two employer partners that have joined us today that we're excited that are here, and they're going to be talking about their experience with the partnership between ABE. And so let us get started. I am Gerdin. I work at the Hub Center. I'm an assistant supervisor, and I oversee our workforce education program, which includes our job training classes, as well as any classes we have out in the city and those partnerships that we have with the employers.
And I'm Lynn Thompson. I'm the program manager for the Hospitality Career Pathway and also one of the instructors. And we have integrated education and training classes in the hospitality area of housekeeping, cashiering, dietary aid, and we also have a professional leadership training as well.
So I want to introduce the employer partner with the Hub Center, Terry Cherne. He is with Innovize. And Terry, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and what you do there.
Good morning. Terry Cherne. I'm a shift advisor for rotary converting here at Innovize Medical. We are a medical manufacturer, and I essentially take care of finishing across our first shift.
Great. And then I'd like to introduce Gerdin Vandervelde with Children's Minnesota. And Gerdin, you can come on camera and introduce yourself as well. She is the employer partner with the International Institute.
Yeah, my name is Gerdin Vandervelde. I'm a talent acquisition workforce specialist at Children's Minnesota. Been here for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, but I work a lot with our community partners that have training programs that fit the needs of the roles that we're looking to hire for. So thank you for having me.
Great. Right. So why are we here? Why are we talking about this?
So today we're going to start with the why. We're going to look at the student success, why we're doing these partnerships with employers, the company productivity, why it's beneficial for the company, and how this builds community partnership. So just to start off, we'd love you to chat in any partnerships that you have currently that you are your ABE program is partnering with a local business or a local company in your area. So please feel free to chat in, and even chat in, why that's important, why you think those partnerships are useful and help each other.
I'll give everybody a few minutes. We have our own ideas of why it's important, but we want to know from you guys why this was an interesting topic to you and why you think it's important to talk about.
So we're not seeing too much right now, and please feel free to chat in as we're going, and then of course chat in any questions that you might have for us. A couple areas that we want to look at for the employer, why this employer partnership is important, is just to start off career and economic advancement. So looking at those areas of how we can help our learners, our students move forward in their careers, being able to increase their wages and be more successful in the job by providing these partnerships. So that's just one area, a very general area, but an important area for us to start looking at. And I see now more things are coming into the chat, so thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too that we see in a lot of our classes, we have especially classes for very low level English and getting people their very first job in the US. And so it's important that they build that confidence, that they know they can be successful in the workplace, and that they know the language and the vocabulary and even all of the English idioms and cultural pieces that are important to being successful and confident in the workplace. And so we can, very easily get people their first job, but unless they have those building blocks to work with and continue to build on in their English language ability, then they often get stuck or stagnant at a certain level. And so we want people to continue to grow and build their skills and abilities over time.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just going to read a couple partnerships that are out in the area at Moore. They're working with Bix Produce. She says, I think it's so important to employers and to employees because students don't have to choose between working and going to school. To us, it is also beneficial to have an idea of what is happening out in the community. Yeah, that's a great idea there. I believe giving students opportunity to make a livable wage, Heather Anderson mentioned. It says West has 2 business partnerships and 1 more in the works. Oh, that's fantastic to hear about. So ESL instruction at all 3 of them. Learners, Megan Boyle, learners need specific job training. It's a great opportunity for them, and it's great for employers as well. And we'll hear from our employers on why that is so great. And Megan, she works here at the Hub Center in our partnership with the Minneapolis Airport. And I'll mention a little bit more about that later on. Something that Lynn and I wanted to do a disclaimer on is that as we're going through these slides, these are partnerships between our 2 programs and partnerships that are with employers in our areas. So it's going to look different in all of Minnesota and how things work out. And then Teresa just started to work closely with an employer in hospitality on the North Shore, sending international employees to our ELL classes. And it's important to understand the students and employer needs and help with the workers' advancement. And then Angie Frank, currently in Duluth, does not have any employer partners, but we're interested in exploring this. So hopefully we can give you some ideas on how to do those partnerships. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we just want to highlight too that in the workplace, these partnerships definitely improve the employee experience and makes the workplace feel more welcoming and open to their experience and makes them feel a bigger part of it. And of course, which we all want is employee retention, that they tend to stay at places where they feel valued and that are investing in them to continue growing. And that allows the companies to retain their employees for a longer period of time. Anything else we wanted to add on that piece?
I'm just looking in the chat. There's a few more. We had some great responses as we went through that. So it sounds like a lot of people are starting some good partnerships and are continuing to look into that. So thank you for all of those who have chatted in. A welding program. So it sounds like there's a lot of things happening.
Great. Oops. Okay, moving on to what is this? What is workplace literacy and integrated education and training, and how are they the same and how are they different?
So as I mentioned, we again are speaking from our own programs. And so at each program, it's going to look a little bit different. I'm focusing on workplace literacy and what that looks like for the Hub Center with what our partnerships are. So currently our workplace literacy is at one site is at Innovize. And then we also have a site at the Minneapolis airport. And even between those two programs, they're very different. It's primarily English instruction that we are providing to the employees of those two work sites. The English instruction is between 2 and 3 hours a week. So we try to meet before or after a shift to make it very convenient for the employees so that they are not having to come back, not having to rearrange their schedule so that it fits into what they are currently doing. They are usually paid for their time by the employer. So that's another good reason to attach it to the beginning or end of the shift. So that just continues, and that's just an incentive and a positive way to reinforce and encourage the students and employees to do these classes. The goal is to improve English for their current position, and the goal is to improve communication skills with their coworkers, with their leads, with their managers, and with the customers. So at the Minneapolis airport, we provide English classes to multiple employers at the airport. It's not just one employer. And so we're not able to teach on all of those individual skills that they need at their job. So our common theme at the airport is customer service. Our common theme at Innovize is also going to be customer service because we want them to be able to have that communication skills with their coworkers and their supervisors, but we're also pulling in some of their skilled training that needs to happen on the job. So Terry will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but again, each site is going to look a little bit different. And with workplace literacy, we're connecting to just one employer in that location. So at Innovize, we're just working with Innovize. We're not pulling in students from other sites in regard to providing that English. At the airport, it's a little bit different where we do have multiple employers, but we're at that one site. So those are some highlights of what workforce literacy looks like in our situation.
Yeah, and so then I will share a little bit about the integrated education and training that we provide at the International Institute. And it's essentially English and job skill instruction combined. And so we have classes that run between 4 to 8 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, that teach at about a particular industry instead of like a certain job. So we have housekeeping, but it's also environmental services. So we're preparing them for jobs in hotels or hospitals, nursing homes. It could be office cleaning, things like that. And so we're teaching them the English skills that they need, as well as the job skills. So it could be something like organizing a cleaning cart, but then we also talk about verb tenses and combining pronouns with the correct verb and doing a lot of those English skills along with the job skills that they need. It's usually unpaid. I'm working to try and get more paid training. That would be great, but because it is over a longer period of time and not always on the job site. We do on-site training, so I partner with hotels and hospitals to allow our students to come in, maybe do some job shadowing, do some practicing, like we go to a hotel and practice bed making. We go to a nursing home to observe meal service during lunchtime. And the goal is to prepare students for a job, but we are connected with multiple employer partners so that we can, after the training, find jobs for students in the place where it's going to be most convenient for them and fit their schedule, make sure that it's on the right bus route and all of those kinds of things. So this is before they've gotten their job, whereas workplace literacy is they already have their job and they're continuing to learn English while they're there.
So Lynn, we had one question from Cherne. She was asking about the funding for the specific employer sites. Cherne, I'm just going to specify, are you asking about funding to pay the students during the ELL time? Or are you asking about funding for the class itself? How does a class get paid for?
It's like she said the teacher pay, so it looks like funding the
Teacher
class
pay.
itself. Mhm.
Okay, so great question. So for the workplace literacy classes, what we do is we set up, because it's the first time, if it's the first time going into this employer site, it is funding that we do not currently have in our budget because it's a brand new class. So we do ask the employer to pay for that first year of class. And what that looks like is that they are paying for the instructional costs, they're paying for the intake and the testing costs, and then they're paying for any curriculum development. So meaning that they're paying for the time that the teacher is doing that. It is a fantastic deal. I'm just going to say ABE is a great deal, meaning that, you know, if they were to go through a private agency to do this work, I think the cost would be substantially higher. And so that is an ask that we have for that first year. Now, after that first year, we'll have those reimbursement dollars. And so after that, the only thing we will ask for is the intake and the testing time in some situations. And then if there's any curriculum development. So if we're changing the way we're doing the class, if we're adding another class, if we're toggling between like a high flex type class and an online class and an in-person class, and we may ask for those additional costs. Again, it's just a communication between the employer and the AB program and seeing what works for you and how that can pan out. Does that help answer the question? I hope so. We do have a minimum number of students. So if and that's also something that I will write into the contract or into the agreement, is that if the number of students drops below 10, then the employer will help reimburse us for that time so that we can be able to pay our teacher, be able to get those costs at a place where it makes sense for us to do it. So yes, that's a great question.
Great. Well, let's hear from our employers. So tell us a little bit about what the employer experience is like in your location.
So again, this is Terry Cherne from Innovize. I was given a list of questions to take a look at. Good morning, everybody. I'm still on my first cup of coffee, so give me a break. Employment context. We are a custom manufacturer of medical supplies. We are in the northern part of the cities near White Bear Lake. We are currently at 50 million revenue, and we're tracking towards 100 million in the next 2 to 3 years. So we have significant growth going on right now. We are trying not to grow our footprint here. So we want to stay within the same buildings. We don't want to increase staff massively. So our idea here is to keep working on efficiencies. So why would I partner with an ABE program? And Jordan, I think, is going to talk a little bit about this. Staffing issues. It is very difficult to find associates here in the cities. We are able to hire and train diverse associates. So here we have our own version of a temp agency, which we call seasonal. We can bring in associates that don't speak very great English. They can start working with us. They can become assemblers, start through our ELL program. And then when they get to a point where they're very confident in English, they can move into technician positions. We also partner because of the on-site training, like Karen had mentioned. We have a lot of training that is extremely expensive. And when we send one of our operators to training, we will lose them for an entire day. Here, what we do is it's been worked out. We work around 3 shifts. The training has been set up at shift changeover. So I only lose about an hour and a half to 2 hours on the floor of press time. My associates go to class, something like 60 feet away of where they work. So we don't lose them for an entire day. That's a nice feature. Lesson plan that can be tailored to, sorry, I got a light flipping off here. Lesson plan that can be tailored to company needs. As we find that we have issues on the floor, we can speak to the ELL program and they can address some of these things in class. So what has worked? I had a previous relationship with the Hub Center about 10 plus years ago in a company in St. Paul. When I was down there, we were able to bring a lot of students through the ELL program and mainstream them into other programs so they could go into a lean practitioner program, which lean looks for waste around the company, cuts it out and creates efficiencies that I can capitalize on. So we were able to take people with English that were English challenged, get them into certifications and get a lot of projects done on the floor that we normally would not have been able to do. We also helped them get through a certificate program where they had to write a paper. And being English challenged, it was nice to have that start before we got into those programs. So fast forward to today, what has not worked? Okay, Innovize has not had a high level of involvement up until recently with the ELL program. So I started here about a year ago. And when I started, I had heard that there was an ELL program going on and that my old instructor, George Schooley, was here. So I wanted to go over and say hi to him. He's a friend of mine. So went over to see him and saw Cherne there. And we got a chance to sit and chat. And I got a chance to watch the program, but I didn't feel right in it. When I was sitting there, there was just something that was missing from the first program we had done, and it kind of bothered me. It stuck with me. So now, you know, fast forward months and months down, I've been doing a lot of advocating and talking to people about the ELL program and listening to people say, you know, it's just not effective anymore. And then going, okay, so I sat through 5 classes, and through those 5 classes, I have not seen one Innovize person in them, okay, except for myself. And what I realized is that we were not involving ourselves directly with the instructor. And remember, it was COVID, so a lot of it was done distance. So by the time that I came in here, they were just starting to do class sessions again. And we have a supervisor that works over in another area that took a keen interest in ELL, started writing up lesson plans, came to see me, and I'm like, have you showed this to the instructor? She said no. So we set up time to meet with Cherne, showed it to her, and they were looking through it. And Cherne is like, this is important. This is gold. So now this person here, which I would refer to as our champion, has been working with them. I was invited to go back to class on Tuesday, sat through the class, and I saw engaged associates talking about important items that were out on the floor. The instructor had very valuable information that she normally didn't have. So i.e., I saw engagement, and you know, not just on the ELL side, on our side. So they got a champion now. So what are the intended outcomes? Reduction of errors and creation of efficiency. I talked about that. An engaged workforce. But you know, let's talk about what the unintended outcome was. That program that we did 10 plus years ago, those associates were engaged. What I'm finding now is I've been traveling around the cities. I've been to 3 different medical companies now. I usually work in them until my project's done, and then I move to my next company. So this is 3 companies removed from that company in St. Paul. And some of those students are calling me and asking for employment, okay, which means that they are either now not engaged, so they're leaving their employers, or they want to come somewhere where they know someone is going to help them get into an ELL program or get into some kind of training. So since I've been here in a year, I've hired 6 people from previous companies. So one of the things we talked about is staffing issues. I am my own headhunter now, and I attribute a lot of that to the training that I got from ELL, the students that were in there, but there's a loyalty and a camaraderie that happens from that. So that is an unintended outcome that I just wanted to thank you all for. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. And Jordan, do you want to talk a little bit more about Children's Minnesota?
Sure. I'll apologize. I might have to take a couple sips of water here. I was at a all-day career fair yesterday and I've kind of lost my voice here. Um, employee context. So Children's Minnesota, we are the 8th largest out of 31 freestanding pediatric health systems in the United States. So we're pretty unique to this area. We're the regional leader in pediatric healthcare. And we care for kids from, before birth to young adulthood up to 18, sometimes a little bit later than that. We're nonprofit. We have our 2 hospitals in Minneapolis and St. Paul, 9 primary clinics, 8 specialty clinics, and 6 rehab. We're the only level 1 trauma. We're the only level 1 surgery center for kids in Minnesota. Our clinical expertise, leadership, innovation are celebrated locally and nationally. And our duty as the kid experts motivates us to recruit and train that top talent as we work to be every family's essential partner. So something I learned the other day, according to Deed, healthcare roles make up 20% of the vacancies in Minnesota. So really big number right now, and we have really high needs in clinical and non-clinical areas. For the programs that I partner with our community partners like International Institute, we're looking at nursing assistants, but also phlebotomists, environmental services, which is housekeeping, dietary aides, and then the whole gamut of everything. There's a bunch of tech roles that we're looking to hire for, 2-year degrees, 4-year degrees, nurses, pharmacists, all sorts of stuff that maybe you wouldn't think of when you think of the hospital. So a lot of these programs are really good entry level points into healthcare so that we can keep training people up and up and up in their career ladders. So let's see here. Why partner with ABE? So specifically with International Institute, I think it's really important that we partner with them because the work they're doing is helping give those people that we have high needs for. So housekeeping, almost every, a lot of places need housekeeping. If you have a building with a business, you need people to go in and clean. So, and that doesn't exclude hospital, but you might not think about hospital right away. Same with nursing assistants. I feel like a lot of, especially new nursing assistants, they might go to senior living first or do a group home or something like that first, but hospitals will hire you right out of your certification as kind of like a new grad. I think it's important to partner with these organizations just because they provide these candidates, they provide diverse, local, equitable candidates for us to build that pipeline to help us help our employee base reflect the community that it serves, right? So, and how has this worked here? So, we're able to hire nursing assistants, housekeeping, dietary aides, a handful every year from International Institute, which five hires can be a lot if you didn't have that before. So it gives us a great pipeline. We're really good at partnering and being able to support each other. So we do a lot of stuff like mock interviews with these students so we can build trust, tours so that they can come and see the hospital. It's not as scary as they might think it might be in that environment. And yeah, just kind of continuing to build that trust and have them get to know us. What has not worked? One thing is within the hospital setting, it is a different environment, right? So there's a lot of emergency situations that can happen. And you need to be able to communicate really quickly and clearly sometimes. So I think one of the challenges is that some candidates just need to continue working on their English as a second language skills. And sometimes that means that maybe they go and work somewhere else first before coming to the hospital so that they can continue to work on that skill. So sometimes that, and one thing I'm thinking of too in the future is, wouldn't it be great if we could have some of that support on site so that we could hire right away? So I think there's a lot of opportunity too in that place for children. So Let's see here. Intended outcomes. So of course, we want to hire people to fill these roles that we have a really high need for, whether clinical or non-clinical. We want to be able to support new Americans with their transition into a career that's really fulfilling. Children's is a huge part of the community. We're taking care of these kids, and we want the people that are in this community to work for us as well. And again, to reflect those rich backgrounds of the community that we serve. So I will stop there.
Thank you, Jordan. And I think I would add too, like, even if they're not quite ready for these positions yet at the hospital, but they've seen it and they know, like, this is where I want to end up. And so it gives them that added motivation to continue in their English language training and to make that their goal in the future. And so I think, like, if it's not an immediate from class to job, connection, that it does plant those seeds at an early stage in their career development. So thank you both for sharing all of that. Just there we go. All right, so now we want to talk about how does this work? How do we connect with employers, and how do we engage with them and continue that relationship? So we think that it's really important to go on site when you're initially starting that connection with an employer, depending on how if they contacted you or you cold called them and said, we see that this is a place where a lot of our students want to work or are working, and we want to connect with you. I get a lot of employers that just contact me directly saying, can we hire your students? And then we have to go through a whole process. But whenever I'm working with an employer, I think it's important to go on site and do a job shadow, really find out about the job and what they're exactly looking for. Talk to the managers and the supervisors, not just the HR. That just makes a huge difference in the environment that you see when you really engage with the managers and the supervisors. Karen, did you want to add anything there?
So yes, I did. So Karen Walters is asking the question about what do the classes look like? So when we start the conversation with an employer, as mentioned at the top bullet, we do go on site and we ask to do a job shadow. We have those job descriptions. We talk about what the students are doing in their job, and we want to make sure that we customize our curriculum so that it fits to what they are currently doing. We take input from all of the leads, from the supervisors, and as Terry mentioned, when we first went into Innovize, it looked very different than how it's going to look and what it's looking like right now. And that's that important piece of that conversation, that communication with your employer, because you need to make sure that you're meeting the needs and that you're fulfilling that gap. And so the classes are going to be multi-level. We have employees in our classes that are testing on ACASAS 2728 and going up to TABE testing. So they have a wide range of skills. And so depending on the size of the class, we have broken it into 2 levels. We did that at the airport where we had a higher level and a beginning level class. At this site, we don't have as many students, so they're all in the same class. One thing we also try to do with that curriculum is pulling in some of our platforms so that the students can continue to be engaged outside of the class time, and they're continuing that language learning. And that's very important because the class is 2 hours a week, so how much are they getting in the class, and how can we complement that and supplement it with additional DL outside of the class? So I know, Lynn, I kind of went on a little tangent there, but
that's great. Good information. Yeah, it helps to really get an idea of how it works. And I would say too, like on the with just talking to HR, like Jordan is like my connector to all of the different departments at Children's and all the different locations. And so like it's really important to start that relationship with HR, but then she can introduce me to the direct managers and supervisors, and then getting to know them. I see how they work with the employees and train them. And when we go and get tours, then I can see that these managers and supervisors are going to be really welcoming and accepting of our students and being able to work with them. So that's what I mean about talking to the managers and supervisors. And then, yeah, like you said, looking at the job descriptions, find out what exact vocabulary that they need to be successful on the job. And then I always love collecting any kind of schedules, menus, procedures, task lists, any English that they need to be really successful and they need to understand in order to do the job. To take those and then use them in the curriculum. So break them down. What are the abbreviations that they're asked to see? What are the English idioms or the things that we just take for granted as native English speakers? And we think everybody just understands this, but they don't. Also taking really higher level English and making it much more accessible to lower level English speakers, which is really much easier than we think, and we just don't think to do that all the time.
And in conversation with Terry just more recently, we were talking about they have a scorecard. That scorecard is something that they want all of their employees to do, and some of those bullet points on their scorecard is to do some reflection on their own work, on their leadership skills, on what it looks like to be a good leader. And that's information that's really important for the employees to know, and it's information for the employer, for their supervisors to know, in order for them to kind of increase, be promoted to advance in the job. And Terry gave me a book. He showed me some materials that they do, and I'm like, oh, that's some high level material. And so, you know, how can we break that down and help the students get through this same information, but in a way that works for them? And so that's some of the ways that we're, you know, taking the materials that the employer needs and being able to integrate them into the class.
Exactly. So it's also important to ask a lot of questions up front so that you know that you're making a good connection, figure out what the employer context is, and decide if you want to do workplace literacy or IET. And it may be that this is what you're already doing and you just need to clarify it more. And so we have a couple links here. There's a questionnaire that I use to send out to employers when they contact me. And Cherne has come up with a questionnaire as well, just to kind of vet the employers first and to decide if this is an employer partner that we want to pursue or not.
Yeah, the questionnaire, it was kind of funny because Lynn was showing me her questionnaire. I'm like, what a great idea. I've had it all in my head and I never put it down in a questionnaire. But I think one of those questions that I ask employers is about the challenges that they're facing with their employees. Is it in regard to limited reading, writing skills, you know, looking at even if they need a high school diploma or a GED, you know, where are they at for the company with their academic skills and what's needed there. And then, you know, are they able to adapt to the changing requirements of the job? Maybe there's a new system that's being put in place. Is the student able to learn that new system? Are they able to get on that system, and how can we help? So those are some questions that I will ask employers about specific needs of the job itself, and how can we customize our curriculum in order to help them better.
Yeah, and because we're looking at for the employer as a place where we would place our graduates or make that employment connection. So I'm looking at asking questions more about like, are you on a bus line? You know, what is your starting wage? What benefits do you offer so that we can, and do you have any other, what kind of training do you have? Is it ESL friendly? What other languages are spoken on the job so that I can match that graduate with a good employer that's going to be a good success for them. So slightly different questions that you're going to ask depending on what you choose to do. All right, so we'd love to hear again from our employers about the partnerships that we have and kind of moving forward. What are some recommendations that you have with ABE partners?
So Jordan, did you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So yeah, recommendations for engaging with ABE partners. So a lot of what Lynn has said too, I'll echo. So I think it's really important to really get to know each other and the programs and, you know, vice versa. So the more you know about each other's needs, I think the more we can help meet our common goals that we have. I think I started partnering with International Institute maybe 5 years ago at another company, and I went to an information session and learned more, and then we had more conversations, and I started showing up at the mock interviews and just making myself available. I was answering questions that came up from their staff, giving feedback from referrals that they would give over. I think it's just really important to build that trust, and it really takes time. And should I go through all the questions now, or should we go back and forth?
Let's go back and forth.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So I would also say share the worker's environment often. So touring the facility once, it's going to change 1,000 times as we bring in things, especially in a custom manufacturing facility like ours. So I would encourage quarterly touring the facility and job shadowing, and just, you know, sharing the workers' environment is huge. The other thing I would say, and I don't have an answer for this one, but I would say that our business is run on metrics. Somehow have a reportable proof of improvement that's really strong, because in here consistently, yeah, I want to do an ELL program. What does it cost? What's the improvement? What's the efficiency? Is it going to add to our safety? Is it going to add, you know, businesses go through good times and bad times. And unfortunately, when the economy starts crunching or bad things happen, they start talking about cutting things. And what doesn't have a strong metric on it is what's going to get cut. So I would encourage people to sit there and look at the program and say, what can I give the business that shows them that there has been a marked improvement?
Yeah, great point.
Mm-hmm.
Should I do the next one here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what do I want ABE partners to know about business or hiring practices? So every place is so different. At Children's, in most healthcare systems, I would say now, we require that COVID vaccination. There are very limited exceptions from that, although you can go that route, but few get through. So COVID vaccination, you have to have it. We require a health screening appointment at our Children's Business Campus in Edina. So you would have to be able to travel to Edina to complete that appointment. And that includes a 9-panel drug screen urinalysis that we do as well. So we like to let people know that they would have to complete that. Of course, we do criminal background checks, as I think everyone does. And then if you're working in the hospital environment, if you're around patients, or patient information, even, you have to do a DHS fingerprinting background check in addition to the criminal background check. So even, you know, if you're a non-clinical typical person, like a housekeeper, you're still in patient rooms and stuff like that. So you'll have to complete that as well.
Yep, and very, very common to manufacturing. All of those things that Jordan just mentioned. Plus, I would add safety. We have a lot of loud machines. We have a lot of machines with moving parts. You know, we stress a lot of safety, ear protection, eye protection, clothing, things like that. But another thing, which sounds kind of funny, but dress code is important. We have clean rooms here. And as much as we go through hiring practices and we go through onboarding, people still don't quite understand the necessity of dress code. When you go into a clean room, if you have ripped up jeans or not wearing socks or have fuzzy boots, that brings in foreign materials into the clean room. So we have certain requirements that people do not wear certain things, fuzzy sweaters. You know, you're going into something that you need the air cleaner so that the materials don't get into what we're making and then create complaints. We wear hairnets, you know, so I don't have this problem, but so your hair doesn't fall into any of the machines, any of that fun stuff. So that's the only thing that I would add to that.
And I would just interject in there too, in terms of the COVID vaccinations and the background checks. One of the ways that we've been able to partner with nursing homes and hospitals in getting our students to have some of those job shadowing experiences is that we make sure that they have all their COVID vaccinations, that they're up to date while they're taking the class, because they're going to need that in order to go into the workplace anyways. And then there's different places are going to have different requirements, but I have found that as long as the students are there for less than 10 hours, they don't need to do the background check, and that we're there with them and doing it as shadowing. It falls into a different category than, and usually we're working with their volunteer program to be able to get our students into the facilities as well. And then also that our employment navigators are really working with the students after the class to make sure that they're able to get to those appointments and complete all of those background checks and safety requirements. Go ahead, Jordan, on the last one there.
Wonderful. What benefits are there to partnering? So I would say one of the big ones is many of the candidates that come to us from these programs, they have previous work history. You know, they already have customer service skills or even direct patient care skills sometimes, but without their nursing certificate. So they have those basics down. They're just really working on these additional skills to make them successful and get them into where they want to be. So that's really nice. And the candidates being referred to us and that we're working with, they don't, we're not like exchanging money in order to get, you know, these candidates, but we're both kind of working towards that same goal of employment and supporting each other. So, and then again, I'll just say, you know, over time, we get to understand what we need. And, you know, Lynn knows people who would do well at Children. So she's not just, you know, referring anyone over to us. She knows who's going to be really successful. So we're really not trying to just fill positions. We're trying to make it a happy, successful experience. So, yeah.
And then Karen had mentioned the scorecards here. Scorecards create a lot of tension for the associates on the floor. We ask an awful lot of things. We ask for an IDP, a development plan, and then we ask for competencies on it. So when an associate sits down and looks at it, they're like, I don't have anything to give. When they're going through this partnership with the ABE, they have something for their scorecard. Their individual development plan is actually, I am working on my English skills, and I have a grade that I can show that they've had success or they've grown, but I can also have more tools to use on the floor. Are they actually improving? What do other people say? Are they reading their job jackets? Are they signing? I've had some really good success stories with my crew, seeing confidence. I promoted one person that's in the ELL program from a Tech 1 to a Tech 2 based on the fact that she participates in class and now has brought that to the floor where she's not afraid to talk to an engineer who is the crabbiest guy in the world. I don't know how she ended up becoming friends with him, but it's fun for me to see, you know, this guy have to stop and think and talk with her. And, you know, just months ago, she did not want to work in this area, and now they're talking. That's life learning, and that's engagement. The only other thing that I would put in there too is Gerdin touched on this. We do a panel interview when we have our associates come in. So if someone is getting hired here, they will sit down with about 5 people, and these 5 people will drill them for a while. So, you know, giving some of that training in interviewing is huge. I recommended a gentleman for night shift, a very successful Mark Andy printing machine operator, came in, sat down, would have been very successful here. I know, because I know him. He sat through and was not able to answer any of the questions. His English was very challenged, and he really didn't apply himself. So he basically failed that. They saw nothing. It's a behavioral interview, and it's probably not fair, you know, in that standpoint, but that is something that's very real when you're onboarding into a company, is that people want to know what you're going to be able to do. So anyway, that's me.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. We have just a couple more minutes left, so if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat now. But we just wanted to wrap up by saying it's a journey, not a destination. And that's in relationships of all kinds, but we've all found out things that don't work and the things that do work, but it's really a lot about communication. And I would say especially about like turnover, and when positions change within the employer positions, like HR moves to this place and now there's a new associate working with this group of people, it's important to have that connection so that you can get that warm handoff to the new person that you need to contact and work with at the company, and adapt and change as you go. What else will you guys add?
I would just add that it's that community partnership that we had on one of the slides earlier. It's the ability to strengthen our community through these relationships. And it's a different way to look at how we're working with our students and what we need to be helping them with to move forward. And I think that strength in that community of working with a business, working with our local companies, and being able to provide that relationship is so different than how we do some other things. And I think there's just an endless amount of opportunity for the associate in Terry's case, or for the employee, or for the learner. And so it's pretty neat to see how this will work out. So yeah, if you have any questions, please let us know. If you don't, I think on the last slide is our contact information. So please reach out to us, phone calls, email, if you have additional questions. And it looks like we'll have some additional links and materials sent out to you as well. And it looks like we have the links for the next workshops, which I'm not sure when the next class starts.
Right at 10:30?
Yeah.
Next. Okay. Any closing thoughts?
10:45.
10:45.
Yeah.
Oh, you got time. Any other closing thoughts, Terry or Gerdin?
Thank you for having me here. This is fun. This is the second time I've done this, and I've gotten smarter for it, and I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This was my first time, so I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Everybody.